Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Dentistry Beyond the Numbers. Wow, great episode today. Usually what we've been dealing with, actually, I want to do a shout out. Today we dropped an episode of Dentistry Beyond the Numbers where I interviewed Dr. Anthony Vocatore. Anthony is one of the leading educators and really KOLs in porcelain laminates, and he spoke to him about when he came out of dental school, he only wanted to do a fee-for-service practice, and he only believed in the Bentley of dentistry. Now, I'm just going to say before I introduce my guest, I made a living with PPO and private practice in a private practice in New York. Even though we could have said we were fee-for-service, we were on panels. We'll get into that as the day goes, but I'm a big proponent is used right. PPOs have a place in our profession. Of course, anything that's not watched or carefully, reviewed every now and then for fees and profitability is going to be a loss situation anyway. But without further ado, Dentistry Beyond the Numbers is happy to introduce Dr. Stephanie Mapp. Dr. Mapp is a 1994, got that Reeves guy with a long name, loves nails. Was graduate in 1994, University of Florida College of Dentistry, and the founder of Mapp, Your Practice, Dental Insurance Solutions. So 30 years of experience in dentistry, she has developed effective systems to enhance practice profitability without adding new procedures or equipment. Love that. Dr. Mapp is passionate about helping dental professionals increase their production and decrease stress through strategic management or PPO insurance plans. What an apropos topic today, because if you look at journals, if you look at discussions, podcasts, everybody wants to go to fee-for-service. Everybody told I'm going to be a fee-for-service doctor. Well, without further ado, today's episode, we're going to explore with Dr. Mapp how practices can mean profitable PPO frameworks in 2025 and discuss critical considerations in when they transition to fee-for-service. I'm going to stop there, get right into Dr. Mapp. They're great talking about this because we were chatting, and this is about the knowledge that you have, and I'm really so elated that you joined us and give us a perspective of, everyone comes on, like I said, Dr. Vocatore, to his credit, this is what he wants to do. But tell us, I'm so happy here, but tell us what is motivating you? What's brought you from your experience of your practice? You started out, why did you go this realm? What made you tick?
So I'm probably one of the outliers out there that started fee-for-service, and then I brought in PPO into my practice. And I am one of the few people in dentistry that I think will proudly talk about the bad decisions I made in dentistry and what didn't work for me business-wise. And I'm not ashamed, because I know for every one me out there, there's hundreds and hundreds of other dentists that are struggling. And I hear those stories because I'm willing to share my story, and went gone and invested so much time and energy and money into becoming a dentist, and you're not seeing it in your checkbook. And when you're going to work every day and giving your all to the patients and you don't see that revenue coming back to you, it's very, very frustrating. So I was fortunate that I had worked in 8 years of dentistry after dental school. I worked in every kind of practice there was. I did fee-for-service, I did public health, I did a fee-for-service discount, almost like a coupon, doc-in-the-box kind of practice where I was just an associate there. And then what happened was a company came and bought the doc-in-the-box and turned it into every insurance there was, including HMO insurances, which I don't generally work with HMO plans at all, just because my personal experience was bad. But at the same time, I learned about that. And so because I had all that experience, when I did my startup in 2002, I decided I was going to be fee-for-service. And it went great. I knocked it out of the ballpark. In 2006, I was doing over $1 million a year. So think about this is almost, a lot of years ago. And I was doing over $1 million a year with 4 ops. So I was like, this is great. And then the 2008 recession hit, and our practice went from collecting about $110,000 a month to $60,000 a month, because people just were not willing to spend $5 or $10 extra to come in for a cleaning, because almost everybody in my demographic was upside down in their homes. And so being that I knew nothing about actually processing insurance or looking at fee schedules, I knew none of that. I just signed up for every plan there was. And what that did was it brought my production up to surpass what I was doing before. But I also had to hire more people to do that. And what happened was my take-home pay went backwards. So here I was doing way more in my practice than ever before. I personally did $25,000 more in dentistry that year, but I collected $300,000 less. So it was eye-opening where I said, oh my gosh, what have I done? I had $25 in my account.
So let me ask you this. This is really after you building the EQS. So how'd that go? I mean, a lot of new patients, busy office.
Very busy.
But you went home and you said, where's my
money? I was not making a profit on a lot of these plans. And what happened was a coincidence. A certain insurance plan denied a crown, and we had tried to bill the patient, and the patient filed a complaint against us and said, oh, I don't have to pay this. And so I get a phone call from this insurance company, and they said, you cannot charge the patient for this brow because it doesn't fall within our guidelines. And I didn't think anything of it other than the next day I wrote a letter. I broke up with this plan. And the following year, I had lost almost every patient on that plan, but I made more money. So I said, wow, I didn't even think it through. And I realized this, yeah. And then that's when the light bulb went off. And I was like, why am I doing all this work? And I'm not bringing anything home other than, just very basic salary, no extra profit. And that's when I said, wow. And I didn't even really miss the patients. It's like
you said, wow, I got rid of the insurance company, but I still deleted PPOs.
Right, because I still knew I needed to have some insurances in my practice.
Just needed the right ones.
Right, and that's when I actually sat down and I said, number one, I'm going to read every manual of every plan I'm in contract with. I read every single one. Some of them were over 100 pages. I looked at every single color.
You might be a handful of dentists in the country that can honestly say they read those covers. So
I read every manual.
I let's just look at the fee schedules. But
not only did I read every manual, I made a cheat sheet for every plan I had of how it was going to get charged and collected. So I had almost 100% collection rate because I almost never got a denial because I knew exactly for which plan what was get paid and what wasn't. So I became an insurance nerd, basically. And I also took my whole team to learn our software better because when you first start a practice, you don't really learn everything about the software bunch. When I realized there's money that we're losing, it was like having a sieve and you're like trying to plug all the money holes, but there's still stuff running out. I said, I've got to take command of this whole department. There's no such thing as front desk school.
And that's what we talked about. We talk about dentists that have to take control of their business. So many times, I'm guilty of it. We sort of delegated to somebody else and we're asking, and somebody came to you once and said, how do you feel about a girl? He never wake a cop. So it's a lady, but maybe they're girls. I mean, you're young and they never went to college yet. They're running offices. Or if they, so you have to evaluate your team here. You think what Dr. Mapp is really pointing out is sometimes you just have to take a bull by the horn, learn it yourself, and then make those decisions from an educator's standpoint.
Exactly. And I was very lucky because my front desk, my first employee that I hired in my practice, she was a math major. She'd been a stay-at-home mom for years and years. Her kids were all grown and she was bored and I hired her and she was great at math. So that was super helpful. For what I didn't know what she was supposed to learn. How was I supposed to teach her until I started really learning, okay, we need to learn our software better. We went to a multi-day training to learn everything about the software. So many dentists don't even have their fee schedules in their software. We spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on electronic devices. Yes, and you're not even utilizing it. That's what we were doing. So I had to learn, okay, how do I utilize this so that we don't make mistakes? Why isn't every estimate coming out perfect? So these are the kind of things that I had to learn.
Narratives and I get so many calls for narratives because even though they're stock at this point, it's a cut case. some of these narratives don't meet the must. So, I mean,
Right. Right. And I actually learned yesterday there's one particular insurance company that's now saying there must be calculus on cementum in order to qualify as meeting SRP.
sidebar, because you're so entwined. How do you feel about the AR? You know, scaling and route planning was a lot of problems. You need narratives. Look, you always used to think radiographic calculus. Now we have to put it on cemented errors. Really has to be causing severe disease.
Yep.
But how do you feel about AI showing the coloration?
I think that it's going to be a great weapon against the insurances. I do. I think it's going to be very important.
I think some insurances I read or I heard that some insurances are actually hired AI because they're going to take away the consultants.
Well, one thing people have to remember about insurance companies, any excuse for denial, they're making money on interest on the millions of dollars back can get. Right. So they don't care if they throw up one roadblock and then they're going to throw up another roadblock because they're making money on the interest. And it's not personal. Dentists take it personal. They want their money. They're in business, we're in business. You just have to be on the right side.
To your point, I tell my team all the time that, you know, you can have an insurance person that tells his clerks in the carrier that today we're denying all claims. Let them refresh, let them send narratives. We're going to float it to 7 to 10 days further and nail it back, right? And then all of a sudden they get, for millions and millions of dollars, they floated for a week and they cut past policies. So it's pretty true what you're saying. Just from denial, they'll pay it. They know what pay it. They're just making it butter on us, and everything costs month. Stack rate, right? Literally time, energy, or whatever bust it is. But do you think of the challenges of practice of counters during the transition you went through? I mean, you went through yes, no for PPO, yes for DPO. Then you were thinking this isn't working. How hard was that on your staff? How hard was that on you?
So it's funny you should ask how hard it was on my staff because I went in and out of clans once I kind of got the light bulb moment and I'm like, I've got to really pay attention to this. I would go in and out of sometimes up to 3 plans at a year, sometimes more, but I was always chasing a fee. I was never saying, oh, I don't want to work with this company or that company or this company. I don't care the name of the company. If I'm getting what I deserve, right? And so if it was below that number, I would tell people all the time, I'd rather sit and scroll Google for my next vacation than touch a patient for less than what I felt I was worth. Because after you're in the business for a while, your body starts screaming at you and you realize, why am I hunched over doing this for? I mean, I don't understand anybody that accepts less than $100 for any posterior composite. Because, I mean, think about less than $100 for numbing somebody and working on the tooth. So you have to have a line in the sand where you're going to say, I'm not going to work for less than this amount. And so I had a spreadsheet, and this is what I advise all dentists do. Just make a spreadsheet. I had to learn how to do a spreadsheet from YouTube.
And that spreadsheet show.
It should show you.
Just going to ask Dr. Matt what she consider when customizing an approach and what really. So talk about this.
But you want to create a spreadsheet, even if you have to do like I did it, learn how to do it off of YouTube. And you want to put your top 10 build codes on that spreadsheet and compare them.
Wow. Great ideal.
So if you don't know what's your highest paying and what's your lowest paying, and what happens in my practice, my top 10 codes might not be the same as yours. So my better fee schedule might be different than your better fee schedule. And that's why I hate people that go on the internet and they say, oh, you should just drop X, Y, or Z plan. It pays great out of network. It may not pay great out of network in your zip code.
You know, it's so important because a number of stories when I've spent a lot of time looking and evaluating practices for acquisition. And I remember one that I spoke about her once before, but somebody went to a course and they were told, drop all your insurances, go feed the service guy. A very nice practice, cleans the yard. Pretty much of a mixed error. You should have the insurance if you want to be part of the community. That's another factor of the insurance. And he went and he listened to the LDI and the Lidl's there and the talks, and he came home and he told his manager by next Monday, wait, after the insurances, his practice went from 1.4 to 575,000 in the next 12 months, and you're selling his practice for nothing. I mean, it's you're late for what you're saying is really true, and they have to evaluate your numbers and know what you're looking for for your lab costs, to keep percentages, supply costs, keep those percentages, and run an efficient business. And you're saying you could do that very well with the PVL private practice.
You absolutely can. However, and I agree, you should not have 13 different contracts. The best offices can run fine with 5 contracts set. But yes, 5 good contracts. And some of those contracts might have stacked multiple plans underneath there. So you might really be in 15 great plans with 5 contracts.
Yes, I keep up the Mapp makes a great point there. Because when you come into an office that has 13 contracts, that practice is geared towards insurance. They treat you claim for insurance. Eric, could you check if they cover? No, that's not the way. When you have 4 or 5 top PPOs, your mindset is a fee for service. Your mindset is selling quality dentistry, great patient experience, because you're not muddled in that insurance. I love that idea. I think it's great to have that spreadsheet for comparison, because doctors, you are in a business. Nobody, I can tell you, I have great associates. Nobody wants to do a crown for $650. And as they get better and better, you know what they're going to do if you make them do that? They're going to go to another practice. And then you start a revolving door. You know, we have been in dentistry a while, and we understand the pitfalls of things that you make. It can't be sunny. But what are the things you look for and how you transition? Let's say somebody is like you. They're saying, I've been fee for service. I get 6 of 40 patients. Yeah, my mother's friends. She tells me to give them a discount. My hygiene is here 2 days a week. I'm tired of having a 4-day-a-week practice. Now I want to posse. I think PPO is a great way to do it. I think it's what any tips, what you just said about ballistas de mano, about transitioning your practice. Is there any change in your mind in the metal?
Well, first of all, you cannot, it's super, super rare. I should not ever use the word never. But if you're in a saturated area and you've got a lot of competition, you are not going to convince enough people to walk through your door for bread and butter dentistry at fee-for-service prices. It's just, you're setting yourself up for a very, very slow growth in your practice if you're in a saturated market. Now, if you're one of 2 dentists with 12,000 patients around, that's a totally different ballgame. But people underestimate market saturation and the effects on the numbers, and especially the effects on the numbers of new patients. Now, there's a flip side of that, which is there are a lot of offices that are chasing new patients, but a new patient exam for the time the dentist spends is one of the least profitable things in your practice. It's the most important, but it's the least profitable. So why would I want to chase 50 to 75 new patients a month on these low fee plans when I can have 20 to 25 solid patients a month on these higher paying plans?
That's very, very key. That's very poignant, because we talk about production crowd. And when I speak to young dentists, I go to them, and I spoke about it last night over dinner. Production per hour to me was an eye-opener, because it shows me a lot. Number one, it shows me the dentist is comfortable with those procedures. I look at an x-ray, they call the doctor and say, you should do it first. Well, doctor, I thought maybe you look, no, it's because we need to get you better. Look at that. Because this is a looking out there. There's a PAP. Right? It's an infection. Could you look it and do the things? And then look at today's world, you could do it. But it's other thing in that it's not just about numbers. To me, when you switch and you take PPO, that is your decision. It was the drop-off of patient experience. Boy, if there is, they're just going to go to another PPO. And by the way, in the practice today looks great. You wouldn't walk into a practice, oh, this looks like a fee for service. That's hogwash. You can look at some of the most beautiful offices taking 6 or 7 of these PPOs, and most of them are private, but they give it everyone to the same experience. That's very important when you run a MACE practice, like all hybrid folks, is the differentiation. You treat people what you want them to treat. Whether you're accepting $1,000 a crown, $1,800 a crown, that's your decision. But you can't deviate because, 2 things, the judge doesn't know what time we did it, or what the insurance or what their drive did it. Okay. So we have to be on our ball. And maybe that's a bigger reason why you're saying it has to be patient experience. It's what you're saying about, you just have to take it slow, evaluate it, right? Because you're not going to be able to treat people or put them in unneeded targets. That's not the way you want to learn the business, correct?
No, and people don't have toothaches only on Fridays. So when you are down to the appropriate number of patients that you can serve and give a high level of service on higher fees, your case acceptance goes up. So if you're not rushing around at the lower fees trying to get the volume that you need to make payroll, and you can step back and see fewer patients but make the same revenue, that patient's experience gets better. Even if it's an insurance plan, they can have, I did full mouth reconstructions over 4 years on patients because school teachers that they had to use their insurance for 4 years, but we planned it out from the beginning. I can make this happen for you. You tell me what you can afford and we're going to make it work.
I also think that in my office in New York, we had PPOs come in. They would come in a month. We would give them a treatment claim. A treatment claim could be $35,000, $40,000. They said, "Well, my insurance, it's at," yes, well, we get a maximum of your insurance. So we deduct $1,000 off the $35,000. So your balance is $32,000. Which if you use a third-party payment, we can accept $10,000. Now, my point is that PPO doesn't get necessarily in the hard money. They get necessarily not live in a nice home or live in a great community. They may necessarily have no friends. They may have a ton of friends and then just believe that we work hard. We want our insurance vocals. So I get that in dentistry. The beauty of it is it's not forever. We're not dealing with unions. We're dealing with PPOs and they go away. And somebody wants to do it, you say. But on the flip side, if you're definitive, if you're giving them the experience from the front desk phone, the front desk, the hygiene, the assistants, the doctor, you're going to win them over just like a few pursuers up and I disagree. I really do. It's I stake a lot on the might have acquired private practices, beat the service practices, I should say. And I do see the doctor, is an illusion. We know that. But to me, the biggest thing is really having a PPO mix to get the new patients coming in. Do you see that new patients come in more with obviously PPO? And we talked about it before. I do see the marketing goal with the PPO practice. Do you ever notice that they market less or more, or just you use the PPO less as market?
I think the smartest thing to do is if you have a few really great plans in your area, you obviously want to have that somewhere in your marketing. Because I know for us, we had some plans that pay, some of them had $30,000 maximums. So why wouldn't I want to advertise for that if I know I can get somebody's?
So that's amazing. What could you do for a practice? Well, Johnny calls you and says, "I heard you. I wanted you to evaluate our practice. Tell me what you do, soup to nuts."
So I actually work with practices that have Dentrix, Eaglesoft, or Open Dental because Shuri has a way of pulling the data from the system, and I know exactly how many patients are on every single plan, and I know all the write-offs on every single plan. And then I can come up with a strategy. I have some offices that their goal is to be fee-for-service, and the right locations is totally doable. So I would say really only about 20% of the offices I work with are trying to go fee-for-service. The rest of them are really just trying to maximize their reimbursements. And so we look at everything and we first and foremost have to say, we know what it costs to see a patient in hygiene. One of the first things you have to look at is 30% of your revenue is supposed to be coming from hygiene. Are you, first of all, diagnosing perio? That's a big one. Or if I see you're not even diagnosing perio, you're probably doing free SRP, and we got to flip that. But also, if you're looking at 30% of your revenue, and who knows what percentage of your overhead is depending on hygiene salaries, are you even covering your costs in the hygiene department? People should not consider hygiene a loss leader. That's ridiculous.
All those codes, and I know we're coming to an end, but all those codes that I find different people coming into the office, and they know how to add this, add that, a temporary, provisional, I touched the gun, let's put that on. So it gets me a little nervous. Do you feel that, like some people, I bought a practice once, I didn't buy it because every crown they did, they said they did a ginger way. Now, I think people are missing a side of a PPO practice and not doing full.
Well, it clearly states in these massive handbooks that I've read, it clearly states you cannot do that. there's first and foremost, you have to be an ethical person. And so a lot of these add-ons, when you get caught, and some people do get caught, if you get caught, you're going to have to pay out a lot of money.
You may go to jail or you may lose your license.
Yeah.
So that's not what Dr. Mapp is saying. What she is saying is evaluate all your numbers, evaluate what you need to cover your nose and to be profitable.
Right.
And from there, wow, that's really interesting. So it's not just look at the insurance, but back end it to your practice and make that custom fit to you.
Right. And when you said you looked at production per hour, I go a step further. I actually always track collection per hour because production can be fake. That's true. You've got adjustments, but collection per hour is the money that hit your bank account. And so I looked at every one of my hygienists, or when I had 5 associates in my career, I looked at their hourly collection rate because that's the real money. And if the hourly collection rate isn't adding up, it doesn't matter what production is.
Right. That's true. I mean, it's a great point. We hope our production, our collection is almost identical, if not selection being better. I can tell you that after several years of working it, that is really what the case is. And it's funny you mentioned that. A quick thing, because we try to keep our labs, I'm a big percentage guy, lab between 5 and 6%. And that's really good. That's lean. That's watching everything. But the fact is, one office comes in at 8 and 9%. Still not bad. But the question is the collections bad? Is the doctor loafing? I'll leave. What about the fees? Like, you make such a great point with this fee schedule, right? And sure enough, we did a lot of crowns with the lowest fee schedule. Why are we doing that? The doctor's not back. We're killing the practice with this. And to the point, doing an evaluation, doing the self-evaluation of right practice, of our practices. Again, we are the CEOs. We are the people who are going to don't leave it to somebody and sit in on those meetings, get to know your numbers. You don't need somebody good in math. You should be good in math.
If you can get through biochemistry, you can get through it.
Exactly. I mean, you've been doing this too long to start passing major decisions out. And I think this is something that's in the industry. Has technology affected you in any way, in a good way or a bad way, or you don't feel in this arena?
Well, I think where technology is being underutilized is there's still too many offices sitting on the phone getting insurance breakdowns. Technology should be coming into...
Now, let me ask you this, because you're our insurance guru. Anybody that reads manuals, I'll say, is a boo. So we're sitting with a Dr. Stephanie Mapp, who is a boo. And insurance, PPO, the right sizing and writing your office if you're going to go that way. It's not just slip on the switch and take it. There are ways to do it. She puts great points today. But yeah, I'm wondering, being a guru, do you go in and just really evaluate everything? Like, do you put in the claims that need to be submitted? Are you involved in that? Do you look at that front office? And then do you recommend doing the claims responses or backing up or checking on the AR in office? Do you do this?
I believe all AR should be kept in-house unless you're in an area where it's just absolutely not affordable to have somebody in-house. And that's because you're going to provide a much better level of service to your patients if you're not outsourcing it.
How do you feel about all these virtual, people from different countries and out being our assistants and AI calling on new patients? Our patients don't get touched until they're in a hygiene meeting. So now they're talking about virtual receptions. I mean, do we want to take the personal care? Is that thorough?
I think in some aspects, it can be helpful for a practice. I mean, there's a lot of legwork that goes on that, it can take calls. It could help shift. Okay, where does this call need to go next? What's the follow-up procedures? But I think dentists are having a hard time picking the best one for their practice. They seem to sometimes just be shooting multiple areas and hoping something hits.
For apples in a barrel, right? Throw it at the wall, let it stick. Then there's something to be said. The things that should be thrown at the wall, help be sticks. I wouldn't do it in my business. I wouldn't do it with the patients and the way we're going to run. And remember, we're leaders. So when you make a decision to accept one insurance, but how do people get in touch with you? How do people seek your service?
Well, I have a website. So sapyourpractice.com, but it's Mapp with 2 keys.
That's right. Mappyourpractice.com. Today we were speaking to Dr. Mapp, who directed us how to, really guided us in knowing there's a lot more to make a decision. Whether you go fee for service, she's done it both. And like myself, I am a proponent of certain PPOs that love the conversation. It's really important. Tell me anything that you want to leave with our listeners or
So what I really want to leave with the listeners is you spent too much time and money and education to just leave all the major business decisions of your practice to somebody that they don't have a diploma from any particular place. And so you need to really understand your numbers, learn your numbers, know your metrics.
I often say this to young dentists that are in our practices, and I consider myself a mentor. They're a mentor in these docs. They love it. But I tell them that laziness in dentistry is a kill. If you're lazy to get off your chair and examine a patient, if you're lazy to say you see an emergency, and if you're lazy not to dive into the business aspect in your practice, you're going to buying cheap material, cheap chairs, cheap staff, and eventually your practice will suffer. There is no reason for that just because you accept PPO. And nobody should look down at anyone that accepts PPO. I believe PPO has a place in this industry. I have made a lot of money with PPO and private in their practice. I had a $5 billion practice at Lincoln Center, New York, with PPO and private because we knew how to use it. Didn't know how to use it as much as Mapp knows how to use it. I would have made a little more if I had her. Well, so I'm a strong proponent. Reach out. Find Mapp Your Practice, Mapp Good Practice, MAPP, yourpractice.com. Learn how you could really get into 2025 knowing exactly what to accept, what you could grow, and where your practice is going in the next 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It was nice.
Dr. Mapp, thank you, everybody, for another episode of Dentistry Beyond the Numbers. And remember what I'm telling you. Being the chief and the head cook in your practice is immeasurable. You must be the last one to make a decision on what you're treating, who you're treating. The numbers are not everything. You're going to build by patient experience, and what you heard today is another effort to bring more patients, more positivity into your practice, and you grow your pocket better. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you. See you at the next episode.